United States Air Force and Washington Air National Guard. Lieutenant Colonel Lamy, commander of the 111th Air Support Operations Squadron, will preside over today's ceremony. I am Chief Master Sergeant Jason Rowland, and I will be your narrator for today's special event. Members of the 111th ASOS, distinguished guests, family, and friends, welcome to today's ceremony honoring Master Sergeant Alan Albee as he closes out a military career spanning 34 years of dedicated service to his nation, the United States Army, and the Air National Guard. Joining us today are numerous distinguished guests that I would like to recognize at this time. Please hold your applause until all names have been read. In attendance today is Colonel Geikis, Colonel Stilley, Command Chief, I want to say Command Sergeant Major, so bad right now. Command Chief Lawson, and of course our Wing Commander, Colonel Borges. Thank you. His distinguished family, his girlfriend Beth Johnson, his parents, mother Gail Morris, stepfather Donald Morris, Fire Marshal Nathan Pulaski, and his wife Bobby Pulaski. Thank you. The retirement ceremony is one of the oldest military traditions as Master Sergeant Alan Albee prepares to retire. We honor a brave man who found the patriotism to volunteer and faithfully serve his country in times of peace and war since 1998. Although today's event is a finite moment in his military career, Master Sergeant Albee's real and everlasting contribution lay in the missions he contributed to, the hundreds of lives of military men and women he interacted with, cared for, led, and mentored during his time of service. Master Sergeant Albee's presence will be missed, but not forgotten. Ladies and gentlemen, before I introduce the presiding officer, I'd like to welcome Colonel Geikis, commander of the 225th Air Defense Group and former 116th Air Support Operations Squadron commander, to please come forward for some words.
Hey, how you doing?
A little nervous. For the record, I want to clarify, it was 1988, not 98.
The 80s. We're talking about...
My bad. Wrong decade.
Good afternoon, family, friends, teammates, leadership, Command Sergeant Majors, and future Command Sergeant Majors. Jason, I see Hooked on Phonics is working. Tank, our bagpiper, awesome man as always. And it's been a couple years since I've been working in this building, but I walked in 5 minutes before the ceremony, and Sharon Mama put me to work finding a fan immediately. So it felt like home. Yeah. I know how to take orders from Mama. When Al asked me to be a part of this, I asked him to help me capture some of the highlights of these last 34 years, so that we could together help paint a more complete picture, especially for you, Gail, and the family, because we're famous for not telling our moms and our families half the information, even 10% of the information.
I know a little bit
going
about
on.
it.
So, as you all know, especially Gail, Donald, the team of Albee's and all of his teammates here, Al has a gift for speaking as well. And he has talked many a man into submission. For those of you who know and love another TACP with a similar gift who is here today, where's Robert E. Lee? The gray man in the corner. That's fitting, Rob. That's fitting. Can you just imagine a verbal duel between these two?
We've had many, and he always wins.
These two are heavyweights. But yeah, Al can talk a lot. He provided that bio I asked for and then some. So buckle in. It's important to share these stories, however. We honor both Al's service and that of all the teammates around him during these 34 years who served alongside him, as well as the family and friends who helped support him and make all this possible. So bear with us as we take a stroll down memory lane with Alan Albee. It was April of 1988. Thank you, sir. Russia announced that it was going to withdraw troops from Afghanistan. My, how times have changed. The FAA took the drastic step of banning smoking on flights of 2 hours or less in 1988. And a little-known singer won the Eurovision singing contest named Celine Dion. That was also the same year that young Alan Albee enlisted in the Oregon Army National Guard, the 41st Infantry Brigade, at the ripe old age of 17, which is a critical fact because Gail had to sign him in because he was only 17. Al attended and completed basic training at Fort Benning, Georgia for the infantry, also in '88, and when he returned home, he was just in time for football practice to begin for his senior year in high school. And his first drill with the Guards started on that Friday night, which happened to coincide with the football game. He was torn on what to do, so he calls the first sergeant up, asks him, and the first sergeant tells him, don't worry about it, go play your game. Come to drill after the game was over. So Al's high school team played their home games at Autzen Stadium there in Eugene, which is right across the street from the Armory. And when he came out on the field, he looked up into the stands and he saw a sea of camouflage up there. And his entire new unit had come out that night to support him, which is pretty cool. Or maybe that's just what the Guard did in 1988. In 1989, of what we will affectionately call Al's first senior year, he discovered he didn't have enough credits to graduate, which was kind of a big deal. Next drill, he told his platoon sergeant his dilemma, and his platoon sergeant told him, stand by. But later in the day, he came back and got him, told him to follow him. So Al followed him. They went back into a back room of the Armory. Turns out there was a GED test being offered that evening at the Armory. Al sat down without any preparation, and he passed high school. As I recently told my 18-year-old son, congratulations on the easiest milestone of your life. He got his GED. He was getting off to Fort Benning. He graduated infantry school, and after returning from infantry school, he enrolled himself at Lane Community College in Eugene. He promoted to corporal in the Guard in 1990. He attended the Amphibious Orientation Training Course at Naval Amphibious Base Coronado in March of 1990, where he set a then record on the SEAL obstacle course, followed shortly thereafter by getting hypothermia while doing Zodiac surf passages, which was also a record. In 1991, after attending the Army's primary leadership development course, he entered the ranks of non-commissioned officer, and he pinned sergeant on his lapels. Now decided then and there that he wanted to go on active duty. However, there was a small catch. At the time, because peace had broken out worldwide, and the active duty Army was much more selective because it was in a drawdown phase, they were not accepting GEDs. So Al re-enrolled in high school. But to avoid the embarrassment of being back at the same high school, he went across town to Sheldon High on the other side of Eugene, where he quickly discovered that one of his teachers was another one of the sergeants in Charlie County. And after finishing his second year, Al legitimately graduated high school in 1992. For that, I think, small. In the summer of '93, Al got his wish, and he was selected for active duty in the Army. But because they were not taking prior service into the infantry, he retrained into 13 Romeo Field Artillery Firefinder Radar Operator, which is a military occupational specialty in the Army. When then Sergeant Albee arrived at Fort Sill late in the day, he was temporarily placed in the barracks with the basic trainees for the night. Early in the morning, a drill sergeant came charging into the barracks. They began yelling and screaming for everyone to get out of bed. And Al slowly got out of bed and stood at the end of his bunk, half asleep, while the drill sergeant began screaming in his direction. What is your problem, Private? Why are you not wearing the underwear that was issued to you last night? But he ignored the drill sergeant, assuming he was obviously yelling at someone else. And the drill sergeant stormed up at him, getting directly in his face, and began dressing him down in his underwear, the wrong underwear. After a good solid 30 seconds of quality face yelling, the drill sergeant saw Al's uniforms hanging on the bunk with the sergeant stripes, and the drill sergeant immediately calmed down and he apologized. That's a horrible image. Because we had won the Cold War and we had helped our buddies, the Mujahideen, kick the Russians out of Afghanistan, and we had welcomed the Chinese into the World Trade Center organization, or the World Trade Organization, I should say. The world was kumbaya at the time, and the Army was drawing down, cutting its infantry numbers and reclassifying lots of them into the artillery branch. One of Al's classmates, however, failed the artillery course while they were both in it, and that classmate was promptly sent back to an infantry unit. So Al came up with a plan. Unfortunately, up to that point, Al had an excellent average on all of his field artillery tests, which I assumed was like crayons, paper. He decided he was going to fail the remainder of them. But the commandant called him into his office and asked him, "What the hell is going on, Sergeant Alvin? You've been acing this. Why suddenly?" He fessed up. The commandant convinced Al to stay and finish the course. And of course, he ended up graduating at the top of his class. He went on after that to attend the unit level maintainers course and graduated that as the distinguished graduate. In '94, he was stationed at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and assigned to the 18th Airborne Corps, 2nd Field Artillery Detachment, and he attended Air Assault School that spring. Air Assault. Air Assault. Alan hated living in the barracks, so he and his buddy Jeremy, who was married and living off base, they concocted a plan and convinced both of their commanders they were stepbrothers. Don't touch my drum set. So Alan could now move off base and live with his buddy's family, basically building a unit clubhouse and a hangout away from the unit. He spent a lot of time trying to get transferred back to the infantry, but his battalion commander denied every request for transfer he submitted because he was in a critically manned field. Now in the Army, there's an especially horrible place to train. Deep in the hot, humid swamps of Louisiana, the Joint Readiness Training Center. And after 3 JRTC rotations in 1 year, followed by a national training center rotation in the lovely California desert, and another JRTC scheduled, Alan decided he had his fill of the active duty Army hula. It's time to get back to the Guard, time to go home, and back to the infantry. So he left active duty in 1996, bragging to all of his friends that he was never going to go to JRTC again. So long, suckers. And he returned to the Army National Guard, where he promptly deployed to JRTC. On the second of those rotations, he saw some smart, handsome warriors wearing black berets walking towards him. And when he got closer to what he assumed were Army Rangers, he noticed that they were wearing mirrored sunglasses and red bootlaces. They were obviously not Army Rangers. As the classic Army infantry NCO, Al immediately attempted to address the problem. Yeah. So he confronted them, demanding to know who they were and why they were wearing Ranger berets. And that is when he met Staff Sergeant Kevin Whalen. K-Way here? K-Way is not here. Of the, at the time, 116th Air Control Party flight of the Washington Air National Guard, Sergeant Whalen was not fazed by this poor, uneducated Army NCO. They politely explained to him in 1 and 2 syllable words that they were Tactical Air Control Party, and that the Black Beret was in fact a TAC P Beret. During that conversation in the paradise that is Louisiana, the tornado alarms went off and all the service members piled into a nearby ammo bunker for safety. Think about that one. While sitting out the tornado surrounded by high explosives, Sergeant Whalen educated Al on what a TAC-P was, and he told him that the unit was in Washington and Camp Murray. And Al had been living in Spokane and commuting all the way down to Oregon every month. So when he got home from JRTC, he attended several guard drills with the 116th ACPF at the time to see if it might be a good fit. The first drill he attended, the unit did close quarters battle training with the SEAL team. The next drill was patrolling with the Special Forces ODA out of ACO, first group. He'd never done anything like it in his Army career. And confused, he asked Sergeant Whalen, how often does a 116th train like this? K-Way nonchalantly told him this was typical for the 116th. And Al was in love. He had found his true love, and he transferred into the 116th in the Washington Air National Guard in October of 1998. He went through the TAC-P schoolhouse. He was a member of Falcon 49. He graduated in 1999. And shortly after returning from the schoolhouse at Herbie, the 116th ACPF grew much larger and officially converted into the 116th Air Support Operations Squadron. Ironically, Al was assigned to the flight that habitually supported the 41st Infantry Brigade of Oregon, the same Oregon Guard infantry unit he had recently transferred out from. He quickly achieved his dream of jumping out of perfectly good airplanes at the Air Force Academy Basic Freefall Parachutes course. Soon after that, 2000. And while at the free fall course, his first jump did not go quite as planned. He stepped into the doorway, exposed a little too much of his body to the wind, which caused him to be spun around and blown back into the plane. Shaken, he got back up, back into the door, and with the eyes the size of a black beret, And after an eternity of watching the jump master, he finally got the go-ahead and he exited the plane for the first time in his life with nothing but a government-procured lowest bidder product strapped to his back. Still in shock from the initial knockdown, it took him a couple of seconds to realize that he had forgotten to perform any of the basic procedures that he had been trained to do. In a panic, he just pulled the ripcord. Unfortunately, he was in a precarious position at the time, and when the parachute deployed, it resulted in his canopy being folded in half. Now, while spinning at a high rate of speed towards the ground, he began to argue with himself on what he should do next, and we've already addressed how much Al can think and talk. This is an argument with himself, so it took quite a while. In an attempt to figure out what to do next, and while spinning at that high rate of speed towards the ground, he thought, should I A, attempt to clear the malfunction, or B, just cut away the main chute and deploy my reserve? It took a while, but eventually he decided to attempt to clear the malfunction, and the chute then fully opened, allowing him to semi-gracefully glide into the drop zone, where he flared a little too early, smashed into the drop zone with a controlled crash sequence, which we've all done at some point in our careers. On the civilian side, Al had begun to work on law enforcement, beginning at the Airway Heights Police Department near Fairchild. And his new police chief was not excited at all about Al's routine travel to the west side for TACP drills, and given his probationary status within the department, Al thought it wise to transfer into nearby 141st Security Forces Squadron at Fairchild. He quickly ticked off most of the Security Forces leadership because he refused to stop wearing that black beret that he'd worked so hard for. And a few months later, police chief retired, and Al quickly apprised the new chief of the situation, and he was allowed to return to the 116th. Al made Tech Sergeant 2005, but then struggled to find a deployment as a drill status guardsman in the days before they handed out JTAC certs like candy. It's true, Rob. You know. He discovered that the 111th Air Support Operations Center was deploying in the fall, so he transferred to the 111th and he deployed to Kabul, Afghanistan in September of 2007. While in Afghanistan, he promoted to Master Sergeant. In 2008, after returning from Afghanistan, he was approached about returning to the 116th as the first sergeant. And Al applied for the job, and he was selected by Lieutenant Colonel Dowling, who's in the audience today as well, to be the first sergeant. And in 2011, the 116th was mobilized in the largest deployment in the unit's history, and the team was sent to Afghanistan. And as the first sergeant, Al was placed on active duty, and he helped form the core group of support for the unit members and the families who were left behind. In 2012, while still acting as first shirt, he added another hat and moved back to operations, where he also took over as a flight chief for Red Flight, while still performing the duties of the first sergeant. And during this time of dual-hatting roles, he ran into a fairly unique situation while on the Cash River, one forever to be known as the Chrysler 300 forklift. One of his airmen, who shall go unnamed, unless he's in this audience, had been tasked, simple task really, take the vehicle from point A to the airport at point B, pick up another squadron member, bring them back. This young millennial got the job, he left the range driving that Chrysler 300 rental vehicle, got in solely by the MapQuest on his cell phone. In his hand, oblivious to any outside cues, staring at that phone, which plotted him a very direct route to the airport that happened across a live artillery range. This young airman successfully drove past several ineffective Army range safety gate guards with dumbstruck looks on their faces as that Chrysler 300 roared by at 75 miles an hour on a gravel road in the middle of an impact area. Ultimately, the Chrysler came to a stop in the middle of the impact area, buried up to its axles in sand and mud after the radiator blew. They found the young airman, he was fine, by following the pieces of the car along the road surface, including the bumper, which was left behind about a quarter mile behind him. The car was not as fine as the airman, and it took a forklift to return the rental to Hertz the next day. Just a side note, debrief item, always make sure you get the government insurance, folks. So now, First Sergeant and Red Flight Chief Albee, with his airmen facing disciplinary action, was put in a difficult situation of taking care of his airmen and being the commander's advisor as the first sergeant. The commander at the time was a drill status guardsman and a police sergeant in the real world, and he routinely struggled to separate his role as a cop from his role as a unit commander. And he treated this situation the same as he would a criminal case on the street. Al knew that he was going to have to take the role of first sergeant. So he went in to assist the Red Flight chief, or the assistant chief, and he began coaching him on what he needed to do and what he needed to say to help protect their airmen. And after the commander was done interviewing this airman, with the assistant flight chief present and advising the airman, the commander turned to Al and told Al that his move was well played, and that he was a worthy opponent. And Al looked at the commander and he said, "Sir, I'm not your opponent. I just had 2 different jobs to do, and I executed both of them exactly as I thought that they should be done." Footnote, that young airman turned out all right, and he's an MCO in this unit to this day. Second chances. In 2012, while still the first sergeant, Al attended and graduated JTAC qualification course. In the late 2012, he retired early from his job at Airway Heights Police Department to run around the world with the 116 for a few years. He was TDY more than he was at home for this period. In early 2013, he attended the Real Army Jump School, and after graduating, he flew to Salina, Kansas, for a standard close air support training trip. Towards the end of that CAS trip, you don't know which story I'm going to tell us, right?
Don't run away.
This is the family-friendly one. We're good. He got sick and he had a high fever, so he stayed back in the barracks while everyone else went out for the night. Because I believe it might have been Jamie's and Maurice's birthdays. Or so we told ourselves. One of the young members of the squadron, nicknamed 19, wasn't quite old enough to go to the bar. So he stayed in the barracks, but he went next door and hung out with the Army neighbors, who proceeded to get him blackout drunk playing beer pong. Al woke up in the middle of the night. Sorry, I'm going to have to paint this picture. With codename 19 holding himself up on the upper bunk and slowly leaning over Al's lower bunk. Urinating. And Al immediately jumped out of bed and began chasing 19 through the barracks, cornered him in the bathroom, and although being extremely angry, he managed to refrain from hurting 19. However, he did make him sleep on the floor in the bathroom, so that the next morning we all walked out. So, what the hell is 19 doing sleeping in the shower? After that incident, 19's new nickname became R. Kelly. Is R. Kelly in the room with us today? Okay.
He's hiding in the back.
Al left Kansas feeling a little salty, should we say. Flew to Lithuania for a week, followed by Pathfinder School, and then a remote emergency medical technician course to become one of our unit medics. And after that, he traveled to Latvia, Germany, Estonia, Thailand multiple times for training. Eventually, Al was hired to work as an instructor at the Western Regional Counter-Drug Training Center, teaching firearms, combatives, tactical combat casualty care, small boat operations, surveillance operations, and maritime intelligence analysis. In 2014, he began a new role as a full-time instructor for the Basic Law Enforcement Academy, teaching defensive tactics, firearms, and patrolling tactics. At the same time, on the military side, he was put in charge of the training flight in the TACP Accession and Accession program. In 2017, with father time and old injuries catching up to him, Al recognized that physically he was starting to have a more difficult time keeping up with the demands of being an operational TACP. So he transferred to the 111th ASOC to be the unit simulations operator. In 2020, Alan began learning to play the bagpipes during the COVID lockdown, and holy crap, did he learn. If you haven't had the pleasure of hearing Amazing Grace out of Al's bagpipes, you haven't lived. In 2021, Al was selected to become the Chief Deputy Fire Marshal in Grant County, Washington, and once more, he packed up all of his gear and he moved across the state, this time in the opposite direction into Eastern Washington. If you ask Al, he'll tell you that this last year in the new position has been challenging. It's a real job. Full-time school, and drilling as a guardsman every month. But he's loved it. Having already retired from law enforcement and now retiring from the military, Al is officially an old fart. Like JD. And Andy. And a couple in the front row here. Al has plans to finish up his degree in fire science and eventually a master's in criminal justice, as well as growing out his beard, because he believes it's going to help him play the bagpipes even better. For these past 34 years, Al has been serving and helping, standing by all of his teammates. He has always been the selfless friend and teammate who expects nothing in return, truly expects nothing. He's the same guy who's surprised when those around him show up for him. When he has needed that hand in those moments that we all have in life. So Al, thank you for what you've given to this team, my friend. Know that we will always be there for you as well. And if you need us, say the word. Congratulations, brother. Best wishes.
Thank you, Colonel Geigis. Once again, your critiques are always delightful. Please let me introduce your presiding officer for today's ceremony, Commander of the 111th ASAWS, Lieutenant Colonel Lammy.
I promise I'll keep this short. Thank you, Colonel G, for that. I wasn't thinking when I said, you go first and I'll clean up what you don't do, because you always speak so much better than I'm capable of. But all I like to say is, Alan, thank you for letting me be up here to celebrate your career with you. It's an honor, and just to be in this experience with you in front of this family that we have here. I appreciate the opportunity to do this, and I appreciate you wanting me here. I think it's kind of fitting, and again, we'll keep this short because, like he said, he's going to talk later. So, and we're all hot, and we got business thing too. So, it's fitting that your retirement, like you didn't plan this Vista weekend, but Vista weekend is fitting for everything that's going on with the TACP modernization, all the stuff that's going on. And now you've got 111th, 116th guys, everyone right here together in a team that is much like what we'll be looking like in the future. So this is almost preordained and a blessing to happen this weekend. You know, the bio, everything there is that, like we said, tons of stuff going on. Not that he's broken when it comes to 111th. You don't have to be broken to do ASOC stuff. but you know, it's the bottom line is that Alan is the guy that stands up to help support, defend his family, his country, his airmen, his Army brethren, and anyone there. He's not afraid, whether it's a sexy job or an admin job, he'll step up and do what's needed. And I appreciate that. He was invaluable for our simulator. Without this man, our sims would have been terrible. He went out of his realm, learned jobs at much higher echelons to build air tasking orders and things that it takes hundreds of people to do. And he spent time doing that, often at a drill. Like, I would think I'm the last one leaving, and I'd be pulling out, and I'd see his geeked up GMC truck with all his overland kit next to the sim building. He's still working a scenario to try to fix it to make it better for the next day. And your hard work has been appreciated in the 111th, and not just the sim, but stepping up to all the exercises. Warfighter, everyone hates Warfighter. I think you secretly liked it because you got a spy on what you used to do, but not be in that chain of command. A little tear in the eye. All the exercises, whether it's UK, going all over the place with us, and you would step up to do those exercises no matter what. Like, you were there for us. Gosh, I need to remember to read bifocal sometimes. Speaking of getting old and broken. So, and Alan's one of the guys. He's not here for the paycheck. He's here to build family, long-term relationships, and you see it here today with everyone that's here. I mean, that's what this is about. And you've built friends. Oftentimes, retirement ceremonies feel like a eulogy or a funeral, but this is not goodbye. This is basically a permanent shaving. You are family. You're always invited here. You know, we're all one family. We're all in this together, and we appreciate all you've done. You're a husky and an ace hole forever. May your cast iron never go rusty, and one day your rig be better than best.
Thank you, Colonel. In recognition of Master Sergeant Alan Albie's outstanding service to the United States, Lieutenant Colonel Lammy will be presenting Master Sergeant Alan Albie with the Meritorious Service Medal. Ladies and gentlemen, will you please stand? Attention orders. To all who see these presents, greetings. Master Sergeant Alan G. Albie Jr. distinguished himself in the performance of outstanding service in the United States as a tactical air control party craftsman with the 111th Air Support Operations Squadron from 6 November 2017 to 18 August 2022. During this period, Sergeant Albie provided operational oversight for the Joint Theater Air Ground Operations Simulator that provided training to 27 crew positions He meticulously designed over 20 training events consisting 160 hours of joint air-ground integration center experience. Sergeant Albee was hand-selected as the senior enlisted liaison for a joint task force activation in response to COVID-19. His leadership provided oversight to 700 members providing statewide civil release efforts during the pandemic. Additionally, Sergeant Albee was the senior fighter duty technician during multiple joint warfighter exercises where he led planning efforts that organized air and fire plans. Furthermore, Sergeant Albee authored the unit's annual training plan that synchronized efforts for 63 members of the United States and United Kingdom combined exercises. His direct influence bolstered key partner ties while creating new tactics, techniques, and procedures. Finally, his exceptional leadership of airmen and overall dedication to the unit's mission earned him the 2019 Senior Non-Commissioned Officer of the Quarter. The singularly distinctive accomplishments of Sergeant Albee culminated a long and distinguished career in the service of his country and reflect great credit upon himself, the Air National Guard, and the United States Air Force. Also, Master Sergeant Albee is being awarded the Washington State Meritorious Service Medal. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for publishing of the retirement order.
Publish the order.
Attention to orders. Department of the Air Force Reserve Order Echo Kilo Tree 08 dated 26 April 2022. Master Sergeant Alan Albee is relieved from current assignment with the 111th Air Support Operations Squadron, Camp Murray, Washington, and is honorably discharged from the Washington Air National Guard, assigned to Retired Reserve Section, and placed on the USAF Reserve Retired List effective 18 August 2022 by order of the Secretary of the Air Force. Ladies and gentlemen, you may be seated. At this time, Lieutenant Colonel Lammy will present Master Sergeant Alan Albee with his certificate of retirement. The certificate of retirement reads, to all whom shall see these presents, greetings. This is to certify that Master Sergeant Alan Albee, having served faithfully and honorably, was retired from the United States Air Force on the 18th day of August of 2022. Signed, Charles Q. Brown, General, United States Air Force. To mark this special occasion in the career of Master Sergeant Alan Albee, Lieutenant Colonel Lammy will now present a certificate of appreciation from our Commander-in-Chief. The certificate of appreciation reads, Master Sergeant Alan G. Albee, Jr., I extend to you my personal thanks and sincere appreciation of our grateful nation for your contribution of honorable service to our country. You have helped maintain the security of the nation during a critical time in its history with a devotion to duty and spirit of sacrifice in keeping with the proud traditions of military service. I trust that in the coming years you will maintain an active interest in the armed forces and the purpose for which you serve. Those who follow in your footsteps will draw inspiration from your commitment, dedication, and sacrifices made to ensure the protection of our American freedoms. My best wishes to you for happiness and success in the future. Signed, Joe Biden, Commander-in-Chief. Now we'd like to invite Gail Morris to the stage to present the retirement thing. Mrs. Morris will now place the retirement pin on Master Sergeant Albee's lapel. Sergeant Stack, Senior Airman Storm, and Senior Airman Carlson will now present Master Sergeant Albee with the United States flag that was flown over our nation's capital to commemorate his service to this country. The accompanying certificate reads, "This is to certify that the accompanying flag was flown over the United States Capitol on January 13th, 2022 at the request of Honorable Maria Cantwell, United States Senator. This flag was flown for Master Sergeant Albee in honor of your retirement." For more than 200 years, the American flag has been the symbol of our nation's unity, as well as a source of pride and inspiration for millions of citizens. Born on June 14, 1777, the Second Congressional Congress determined that the flag of the United States will be 13 stripes, alternating between 7 red and 6 white, and that the Union be 13 stars, white in a blue field representing a new constellation. Between 1777 and 1960, the shape and design of the flag evolved into the flag presented before you today. The 13 horizontal stripes represent the original 13 colonies, while the stars represent 50 states of the Union. The colors of the flag are symbolic as well. Red symbolizes hardiness and valor, white signifies purity and innocence, and the blue represents vigilance, perseverance, and justice. Traditionally a symbol of liberty, the American flag has carried the message of freedom and inspired Americans both home and abroad. In 1814, Francis Scott Key was so moved by seeing the stars and stripes waving after the British shelling of Baltimore's Fort McHenry that he wrote the words "The Star-Spangled Banner." In 1892, the flag inspired Francis Bellamy to write the Pledge of Allegiance, our most famous flag salute and patriotic oath. In July 1969, the American flag was flown in space when Neil Armstrong planted it on the surface of the moon. Today, our flag flies on constellations of Air Force satellites that circle our globe, and on the fin flash of our aircraft in harm's way in every corner of the world. Indeed, it flies in the heart of every airman who serves our great nation. The sun never sets on the U.S. Air Force, nor on the flag we so proudly cherish. Since 1776, no generation of Americans has been spared the responsibility of defending freedom. Today's airmen remain committed to preserving the freedom that others won for us for generations to come. By displaying the flag and giving it a distinctive fold, we show respect to the flag and express our gratitude to those individuals who fought and continue to fight for freedom at home and abroad. Since the dawn of the 20th century, airmen have proudly flown the flag in every major conflict on lands and skies around the world. It is their responsibility, our responsibility, to continue to protect and preserve the rights, privileges, and freedoms that we as Americans enjoy today. The United States flag represents who we are. It stands for freedom we shall share and the pride and patriotism we feel for our country. We cherish its legacy as a beacon of hope and to one and all. Long may it wave.
Master Sergeant Albee, your country thanks you for your service.
Thank you, Sergeant Stack, Senior Airman Carlson, and Senior Airman Storm. All right, at this time, we'd like to invite others to come forward and present any additional tokens of gratitude, starting with the shadow box.
All right. So Joe, our woodworker and extraordinaire hobbyist, he made this beautiful taxi shadow box for you to hang on the wall and right in the dining room probably. I'll use the same jokes. I'll recycle. All right. I guess we'll do a picture. And then from me personally, there's been a lot of things down memory lane. And I've been saving this for an occasion that I brought back from Latvia on one of our TDYs. So you've got an unopened bottle of black balsams, which will probably last you another 30 years. But,
It will likely stay unopened for at least 30 years.
yeah. Spratzy. Oh. Flowers. Well, he does that when he talks.
Okay, all right. Litho. Litho's next. We'll play you a loop.
That was good, I like it.
Yeah, I first met Alan 7 years ago. So like a fifth of the way through your military career. One of the few that was still alive when he joined, or alive when he joined. But I learned the most from him at the police academy. He taught me, well, basically ways to not get dead, and it worked. I'm still here, so I appreciate it. But I didn't know all the stuff he did in the military. It seems like it's a constant theme. Teaching, caring, mentoring, no matter what. The countless hours you put in, I'm sure there's other cops in here who had to be taught by you. And, I'll be forever thankful. It's been an honor. I'll be moving, so come visit. So,
Absolutely, especially if you're moving to Spokane.
yeah, Deer Park, whatever. Close enough.
Away from people.
Is that a real smile?
That's a real
All right,
smile.
good. Yeah. I saw that cheap one you did earlier.
I got a quick gift. All right, I have hundreds of stories. Alan was. I almost gave the wrong gift. So, Alan's been one of my first NCOs I can remember, and I have so many stories. The only one I really wanted to say in this setting is Alan's always been my greatest inspiration, because I remember in Kansas in 2008, he's like, you know what, I'm gonna run a marathon, and just started doing it. And I'm like, who does that? And then the same token, he's like, you know what, I'm gonna start mountain biking. And he gets a mountain bike, and he does everything you could possibly do mountain biking. And then he says, you know what, I'm gonna get into brewing. And there's so many different hobbies. He finds an interest and he just goes after it. And the new one, overlanding, his truck's already pimped out. I'm like, God, how do you do that? So he's always been my inspiration when I want to start a new hobby. They always say, like, you have to suck at it first and then you get better. I never wanted to suck at anything, so like I don't want to do it, but he motivates me to do it. So I found the most expensive thing to buy at the shopette. As TACPs know, the only real gift you can give is alcohol, so for you. All right, back on.
Maria almost said.
Oh, Maria got something? Okay.
But you almost gave him.
My bad.
So we can all stand up here and tell stories about Albee all day, but thank you very much for everything that you've done, and I hope you enjoy this talk.
We're good? All right.
Good.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome our honored guest, Master Sergeant retired Alan Albee.
I'm gonna start the typical here. Flowers. You shouldn't have.
Yes, these are for you. Oh, thank you, Beth. These are for you. These are for you.
Thank you. Nice.
So you're right, I do have the gift for gab, and everybody here knows it. With that being said, everybody that knows me also knows that I don't like the spotlight. I don't like to be recognized, and I don't like to talk in front of people, which is ironic because it became much destructive in the police academy. I decided not to go the TACP way, and I actually wrote my speech. I did not have the chance to memorize it though, so I apologize in advance, A, for the glasses and revealing how old that I am, and also B, that I'm gonna kind of predominantly read this because I'm just not a gifted public speaker. So I'd like to start by thanking a few people. First, I'd like to thank my mom and my stepdad for always being supportive of my decisions despite not liking my choice to join the military or to become a cop. You had to sign my enlistment contract because I wasn't old enough to sign for myself, something you did despite not wanting to see your only son in the military. Beth, though we've only been together for a couple of years, you've been steadfastly supportive of absolutely everything that I do. I'd like to thank Colonel Geikus for your mentorship over the years and helping me through some extremely difficult times. One of my favorite quotes of yours is from a trip up on the PCT, one of our many trips I've been. And it was, "Oh, the chain of letters." And it came after we had lost one of our members, Jason Hoff, affectionately nicknamed the Meat Missile because he just kind of disappeared off into the wilderness. But it's one of those things that whenever I'm doing something that has the potential of going sideways, maybe it's a little bit on the sketchy side, it reminds me that I need to spend a little bit more time doing some planning and thinking to ensure that we don't have those kinds of things happen. Lieutenant Colonel Lammy, you've helped guide me through some turbulence as well. I want to thank you for your friendship and your guidance over the years. It's been much appreciated. Colonel Hartzell, it seems like just yesterday they remember going TDY with Staff Sergeant Hartzell. We've had the opportunity to see you commission, grow into an amazing officer. And thank you for your inspiration, as well as the words of wisdom that you've given over the years. It's been an honor to work and deploy with you, and I'm confident that you will take the 116th to a whole new level of success. Colonel Stilley, thank you for taking a broken TACP and giving him a chance and giving me the opportunity to excel in a whole new environment, and also for the memories out on the OP and the Gila Bend. Hog 1-1, your gun's a little bold. Jason, I know you're a chief now, but I don't really care because you're always going to be Jason to me. Thanks for recognizing the potential in me to be a good simmer operator and putting me in that position, even though that wasn't necessarily the direction I wanted to go. You convinced me that that was where I could be of the most help. Conversations we've had over the years have been a lot more helpful than we realize. I'd also like to, I know he's not here, but I'd like to thank Kevin Whalen for introducing me into this career field and bringing me into the 116. Some other notable people I'd like to mention are Conan Higgins, Greg Casa, Colonel Dowling, Lieutenant Colonel Logan, Troy Carl, Rob Lee, Jamie Medina, Louis Awua, aka The Darkness. That's his own, he gave that himself. I'd also like to thank Lou Santiago, aka Dirty Lou, and Aaron Rollins, affectionately known as Raleigh. You guys have all played an important role in my career and in my life, and for that I thank you guys. Lastly, I want to thank all of my former Green Flighters for working hard and never giving up and making me proud. One thing that I will take away from my experience here is that it's a family. Just like any family, we occasionally have our differences, we fight, we talk trash to each other, but we take care of each other and we protect each other. No one else is ever allowed to speak badly or treat us badly because it's our family. Which reminds me of a discussion I had one time with Ken Hill, one day in the office. We didn't quite agree on something, and So we were having this heated, spirited discussion in the office. And after that was done, didn't even realize it, but Ben Santiago was sitting back in the corner observing the entire conversation. As soon as he was done, he looks at me and he says, "Hey, Sergeant Albee, want to go for a run?" I said, "Sure." So we take off, we go running. As we're running, he looks at me and he says, "Hey man, just so you know," he's like, "that wasn't a conversation you were having with Kit. You guys were like two silverback gorillas talking at each other." It was one of those things that I kind of took to heart. As soon as we got back, I approached Ken from a completely different angle, and we ended up working things out. That's one of the things that kind of makes it that family environment here. Because, you know, Benny at the time was a senior airman. I was sitting at the higher rank, and he still had the courage to come up and tell me what was wrong, right? And that's one of those things that I like to see with this organization. As we know, today is an important day, not just for me because I'm retired from a 34-year career, but for the 116th and their 30th anniversary as a unit. I know this is my retirement speech, but I don't want this to be about me. I want it to be about all of you. My greatest accomplishments in the military are not the things that I've personally achieved. I look out into this group, and I see several young airmen and some officers that I've had the opportunity to train and prepare for a long journey as a member of the TACP. And it is you that I see as my greatest accomplishments. You've poured your hearts and your souls into being TACPs, and I couldn't be prouder of the progress and achievements that you guys have made. 116th has come a long way in its 30 years, being one of the legacy units for the Guard TACP community. It's seen some different evolutions, starting as the 116th ACPF, then converting to the 116th ASOS, and it has more coming, as we know. There are a lot of changes in our community coming this way. Some changes we already know, and others that are still yet to be figured out. There's no doubt there's a lot of uncertainty for the future of this career field. But one of those changes that we do know is that the TACP community is being downsized. And as a result, the 111th and the 116th in the coming months are combining into a single squadron. Having been here for 23 years and spent time in both squadrons, I know there's always been a rivalry of sorts between the two units. The two units also have their own unique cultures. This has the potential to make for a difficult transition, but I challenge you to embrace this change and to recognize that combining the strengths of these two units has the potential of taking two great squadrons and transforming them into one truly exceptional squadron. Both units have a long, proud history. Though their missions have had entirely different focuses, they both have led the way in the career field. The 111th has been the leading ASOC for many years, developing TTPs that all others look to as the standard of how an ASOC should operate. In 2007, the 111th was the first ISAF level ASOC in Afghanistan, setting the standards of how to manage CAS assets for the entire theater. That deployment led to the 111th being asked to assist both the British and the Polish militaries in standing up their own ASOCs. Prior to ASOC QC being stood up at Nellis, the 111th was being looked at to run the ASOC QC course here at Camp Murray. The main contributing factor to why they didn't wasn't because of the capabilities of the 111th, but it was just that we simply didn't have the resources inherent here at Camp Murray to be able to support performance school. Greg Casa, who also served in both squadrons, developed the JTAC simulator while in the 111th, which is now the system of record across the entire Air Force for JAGIC training, which I just discovered has been reduced significantly in the last couple of months. The 111th supports 4 infantry divisions and is regularly asked to support other divisions on a regular basis, which is more than any other AirSOC in the Air Force. The 116th also has a history of excellence, starting with its unofficial relationship with 19th and 1st Special Forces groups, which has matured over the years, allowing the 116th to send its members to a number of schools and training opportunities that could simply not be matched by any other ASOS. The 116th's ability to develop relationships with outside entities has led to opportunities for its members to deploy and train at an unprecedented level. In the early years of JTAC training, the 116th developed JTAC evaluation standards that were adopted by the entire community. after the fatal training accident at the Udari bombing range in 2001 that resulted in the range being closed, the 116th sent members over to Kuwait to evaluate and rewrite the safety procedures resulting in the range reopening for cast training. The 116th is also one of the most highly decorated ASOSs in the Air National Guard. All one has to do is walk up to the wing auditorium to see the sheer number of Bronze Stars that have been awarded to the squadron, many of which were for valor. The 116th has had 2 members awarded the Silver Star and has had a total of 5 Silver Star winners serve within this unit. The 116th has also had multiple members make it to the 12 OAY for the Air Force. The number of accomplishments and achievements of these 2 outstanding organizations are too lengthy to talk about in one speech today. With just a small glimpse into the achievements that each of these 2 organizations have accomplished in their history, it is not hard to imagine what an amazing future waits ahead for this new single unit and what they will be capable of accomplishing. There's currently a lot of members here that came from the active duty, and they see the way the 116th conducts business is outside the active duty norms. Just remember that it's the 116th's unorthodox ways and unofficial relationships that has made the squadron into what it is today. Made it into the squadron that you decided you wanted to be a part of. My advice to you is to embrace this. It's what makes it different. Don't try to turn it into what you left behind. And my parting words, be proud of where you came from, but embrace the future. Don't try to force each other to conform to your individual cultures, but forge and create a new and unique new culture. Embrace each other as family, and you guys will achieve unimaginable. So I've got a little parting gift that I'm going to give to Lieutenant Colonel Hartzell. I kind of warned him that this was coming. He's promised that it's going to remain under lock and key. But this is the official original romance songbook that was published in the 1980s.
Wow. Yeah. Thanks very much, Al. This will definitely be well secured.
All right, I would say please rise, but you're already there. For the departure of the official party and the playing of the Air Force song.